1. The failed bank robbery. The story begins with a bank robbery that goes horribly wrong. The bank is cashless, so the robber can't get any money. In a panic, the robber flees and ends up in an apartment where a real estate showing is underway. The people inside become accidental hostages. The police, led by Jack and Jim, surround the building and begin negotiating.
Summary of Anxious People by Fredrik Backman, published 2019, English translation by Neil Smith. The police, led by Jack and Jim, surround the building and begin negotiating. 2. The hostage situation inside the apartment are 8 people, each carrying their own personal struggles and anxieties. Their interactions are tense, chaotic, and darkly funny. As time passes, the hostages argue, share food, and begin to bond. Some sympathize with the robber, who is clearly more desperate than dangerous. Zara, a deeply cynical woman, is revealed to have a long history with the building. Years ago, she received a letter from a man who later jumped from the nearby bridge. She's been haunted by guilt ever since. Ro and Julia bicker but also support each other as expectant mothers. Anna-Lena and Roger constantly analyze the other attendees, viewing them as real estate competitors. Estelle is strangely calm, offering snacks and stories. Later, it's revealed she wasn't even supposed to be there. The apartment is hers. The bank robber slowly gains the sympathy of the hostages. The robber finally reveals she was trying to get money to keep her children after a divorce and losing her job due to the economic crash. 3. The police investigation began. Meanwhile, Jack and Jim interview each of the hostages after the standoff ends. Oddly, all of them claim the robber disappeared before the police entered. Each gives a different version of what happened. Jack is frustrated. The hostages are clearly covering for the robber. He begins to suspect that something deeper is going on. Jim, older and more relaxed, is more patient. Over time, they piece together the story and the emotional undercurrents behind it. 4. The twist. The robber didn't disappear. In fact, Estelle had hidden her in another apartment. Estelle, who had lost her husband, but never her sense of compassion, protected the robber out of empathy. Eventually, Jim discovers the truth but decides not to turn her in. Jim and Jack, who have their own strained relationship, are forced to face their emotional distance. Jim had been present the day the man jumped off the bridge, another reason why he's so understanding about mental health and desperate decisions. 5.
The robber's identity. The would-be robber is a mother, recently divorced, whose ex-husband kept custody of the children. The apartment she and her daughters lived in is about to be taken away. The robbery was her last attempt to avoid homelessness. The hostages, moved by her vulnerability, decide to help her escape. 6. The escape plan. The group pretends the robber left through the window, then hides her in a closet. Later, she is dressed as a pizza delivery driver and smuggled out of the apartment. When police re-enter, the robber is gone. No one gives a clear answer. The investigation hits a dead end. 7. Resolution. Zara finally opens and reads the letter from the man who jumped. She begins to heal and even starts to connect with her therapist on a human level. Jack, who has carried guilt since witnessing the suicide as a child, realizes that trying to understand people matters more than chasing criminals. Jim admits to Jack that he found the robber but chose not to arrest her, understanding her situation. The robber, though never named, starts over, given a second chance by the kindness of strangers. Final notes. The novel ends on a hopeful, redemptive note, emphasizing that we never know the full story behind someone's actions. Everyone has hidden pain, and empathy, not judgment, is what binds people together.
And the robber escapes justice, aided by the kindness and complicity of the hostages and the police. The hostages have changed. They've faced their fears, opened up emotionally, and connected. Zara begins to let go of her emotional armor. Julia and Roger reevaluate their marriage and what they want in life. Jack and Jim reconcile. Estelle decides to move on from the apartment after decades of memories. Themes: anxiety and mental health. Every character battles anxiety, loneliness, grief, or guilt. The book destigmatizes mental illness with compassion and realism. Human connection. The accidental hostage situation leads to vulnerability and empathy. Kindness, even in absurd circumstances, is redemptive. Perspective and assumptions. What seems obvious at first often turns out to be false or incomplete. Characters are more complex than they appear. Suicide and Guilt explores the lingering emotional aftermath of a suicide attempt, demonstrates how guilt and blame affect survivors and bystanders. Parenthood and Legacy. Several characters are defined by their relationships with children. The fear of failing as a parent drives many actions. Forgiveness. Characters forgive each other and themselves through humanizing connection. Style and tone. Witty, tender, and emotionally layered. Balances dark subject matter with warmth and humor. Feels like a fable or parable at times, but grounded in psychological realism. Reception. Anxious People was widely praised for its empathy, humor, and portrayal of complex emotional lives. Some readers found its non-linear storytelling or sentimentality challenging, but overall it's considered one of Backman's most humanistic and moving works. Final message. The novel is ultimately about how hard and beautiful it is to be human. Everyone is anxious. Everyone makes mistakes, but we can still choose to show up for one another, even in our messiest moments.